Hello and welcome to Vantage This Week, a show where we recap the highlights of the week gone by. This week, we got the results of India's parliamentary election. Prime Minister Narendra Modi won a third term with the help of his National Democratic Alliance. What were the biggest takeaways from the election? What were the biggest surprises? We bring you the details. The Indian elections proved one thing, that democracy is alive and well in the country. The result completely disproves some foreign narratives and shows the world that democracy works. And speaking of the world, India will now need to look at its foreign policy. We break down India's top 3 priorities and how the returning government should address them. The elections also brought back the government, but they also brought something else back. A host of memes. We are also looking at those, at the lighter side of the recent Indian election. All this and more lined up for you. Let's get started. What a day it has been. A close election after 10 long years in India, and very few saw it coming. Most experts had written off this election. The exit polls predicted a BJP landslide, but the Indian voter had other plans. Let's look at the final tally, the final result tally. The BJP has won 240 seats as of now. You need 272 to win a simple majority in the lower house of parliament, that is the Lok Sabha. So the BJP is 32 seats short. But their alliance is quite comfortable. That's the NDA, the National Democratic Alliance. The NDA has won 292 seats, comfortably over the halfway mark of 272. The BJP is winning 36% of the votes. The NDA is winning around 45% of the votes. That's their vote share. Now we come to the opposition, the India bloc. That's what they call themselves. And this is where it gets surprising. Most exit polls predicted a rout for the opposition, but look at the actual results. The India bloc has won 233 seats. Also look at the split. The Congress party has got 99 seats. The Samajwadi party won 37 seats. The Trinamool Congress won 29 seats. And the DMK 22 seats. It's a major turnaround for them. Some of these parties had been decimated in the 2019 election, so this was their comeback. Despite not getting a majority, their mood was celebratory. Take a look.
नैतिक हार है जो व्यक्ति बार-बार अपने नाम से
जहां तक आप हमारी मदद कर सकते थे उसी लेवल तक मदद की. देखिए,
It's certainly a moral victory, but not enough to change the government. We'll discuss the big takeaways, but first the political map of India. In 2014, the BJP took India by storm. They swept to power with a majority of their own. In 2019, they did the unthinkable. They expanded their seats even more. But cut to 2024 and things have changed. The BJP has lost ground in the Hindi heartland, and that's where the opposition has gained. Let's look at the key takeaways here. Number one, Modi returns, but no majority. A third term is very rare in Indian elections. Only one Prime Minister has achieved it in the past, and that's Jawaharlal Nehru. So Prime Minister Modi is now joining an elite list. Of course, this time in a coalition. He will need his NDA allies to pass legislations, mainly the TDP, which has 16 seats, and the JDU with 12 seats. Takeaway number 2. Divisions within the BJP have been exposed. We heard a lot of pre-poll rumors of the RSS being sidelined, of regional leaders being swapped out, and of discontent in the local ranks. Now we'll know We don't know if any of this was true, but these numbers will fuel that conversation again. Just look at the turncoats. Leaders who defected from the opposition to the BJP, around 25% of BJP's candidates this time were turncoats. Did that affect the grassroots support? Chances are it did. Takeaway number 3, a revival for the Congress party. It's taken almost 10 years. They won 44 seats in 2014. They won 52 seats in 2019, but this time they've nearly doubled the tally. And it's not just about the numbers, it's also about where the numbers came from. The Congress always struggled in direct contests with the BJP, but that was not the case this time. Case in point, Rajasthan. A straight contest between the Congress and BJP in the state of Rajasthan. The BJP won 14 seats, the Congress won 8. Another example is Telangana. 8 seats for the BJP, 8 seats for the Congress party. A third example is Karnataka. The BJP won 17 seats here, but the Congress held on for 9. This was not the case in 2019. A straight fight between the BJP and the Congress meant only one thing, a BJP victory. But that has changed in this election. Takeaway number 4, the return of regional parties as kingmakers. The TMC has won 29 seats. That's 7 more than the last election. The Samajwadi Party has won 37 seats. They had won just 5 in 2019. Also the TDP, the Telugu Desam Party, they have won 3 seats. They had rather won 3 seats in 2019, but this time they won 16 seats. Plus, they're forming the state government in Andhra Pradesh. Now, these parties have improved their position and they are now kingmakers, especially the TDP. Their support is key for Prime Minister Modi. Both Modi and Amit Shah reportedly called the TDP chief after the results came out. Now, takeaway number 5, grassroots problems. If you look at the headline numbers, India's economy is doing very well, like the GDP or inflation. But when it comes to the last mile delivery, perhaps the voters wanted more. Just look at rural India. The NDA lost 30 seats in the rural parts of the country. But the India bloc gained 62 seats in rural India. What does that mean? There was rural discontent in India. That's what the numbers say. Takeaway number 6. The Ram Mandir dividend was largely absent. It was supposed to be the BJP centerpiece, their trump card, but it may not have worked. And why do I say this? Well, look at the Lok Sabha constituency where the Ram temple is located. It's called Faizabad. Guess who is winning it? The opposition alliance, the Samajwadi Party, is in the lead there. The BJP is trailing by more than 54,000 votes in Faizabad, home to Ayodhya and the Ram temple. And that is telling. And finally, takeaway number 7, the BJP's South push was not quite a success. The Prime Minister spent a lot of time there, especially in the state of Tamil Nadu, but it has not delivered. They did open their account in Kerala, but they got 0 seats in Tamil Nadu. In hindsight, was this the best strategy? Should the BJP have focused more on the Hindi heartland? It's easy to ask now, but elections are all about making the right choices. Everyone expected this election to be a referendum on the NDA, on 10 years of their rule, but the campaign veered away from it. There was a lot of focus on the Congress manifesto, on wealth redistribution, and on emotional appeals. Perhaps even that hurt the NDA. Having said that, let's not forget one thing. Returning to power after 10 years is not an easy thing, especially in a country as diverse as India. Of course, this is just the first chapter. We will have a lot of heated coalition talks this week. Make sure you track all of it on Firstpost. So the markets were the biggest casualty, but this election also saw some other big upsets and spectacular wins. Let's look at those key contests of 2024, starting with the losses. The biggest one came from Amethi. Union Minister Smriti Irani lost her seat. She is the Minister of Women and Child Development, also the Minister of Minority Affairs. Smriti Irani was against Kishori Lal Sharma of the Congress Party. Now, Amethi is a district in Uttar Pradesh. It's a high-profile political battleground. It has long been a Congress bastion. Rahul Gandhi made his electoral debut from Amethi in the year 2004. He won the same seat in 2009 and 2014. But in the last election, that is 2019, he lost to Smriti Irani. And it was a big upset. Back then, he promised to win back Amethi. And while he may not have done it himself, his party has. The Congress's Kishori Lal Sharma has won Amethi by more than 1 lakh votes, which brings us to loss number 2. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, India's IT minister. Chandrasekhar was fighting from Thiruvananthapuram. He was up against Shashi Tharoor, a Congress leader and three-time MP from the city. So it was going to be a tough battle, but Rajiv Chandrasekhar seemed confident. Now remember, the BJP has never won this seat or any seat in Kerala in the past. And this time, after a close fight, they lost Thiruvananthapuram. Shashi Tharoor won the seat for the fourth time. Loss number 3, Prajwal Revanna, belongs to the JDS. Revanna is the grandson of H.D. Devegowda, former Prime Minister of India. He was a sitting MP from Hassan in Karnataka. It was quite an easy seat to win from. But Prajwal Revanna was accused in a sexual abuse scandal. It involved hundreds of women. Revanna is said to have fled the country, but has since returned and has been arrested. He's also lost his Hassan seat. Loss number 4. And this one is about two leaders, two former chief ministers of Jammu and Kashmir, Omar Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti. Both lost today. Omar Abdullah was defeated by Sheikh Abdul Rashid, a former MLA who is currently in jail in a terror funding case. Mehbooba Mufti lost to Mia Altaf Ahmed, a spiritual leader revered in the valley. Loss number 5, Naveen Patnaik, the Chief Minister of Odisha. He's been ruling the state since the year 2000. That's 24 years of him being in power. But now that rule seems to be coming to an end because the BJP has stormed the state of Odisha both in Assembly and Lok Sabha elections. The BJP has come on top. They're expected to form a state government in Odisha. And finally, loss number 6, Jagan Mohan Reddy, the chief of the YSR Congress party and the chief minister of the state of Andhra Pradesh. He is under fire in the state for its poor financial health and his bad policies. His party is trailing in Lok Sabha seats, and they've lost the assembly election in the state. So a double whammy for Jagan Reddy. Now let's tell you about his nemesis, who also happens to be one of the biggest winners in this election. That's Chandrababu Naidu, chief of the Telugu Desam Party or TDP, also a former chief minister of the state. Naidu has emerged victorious after suffering major setbacks. He was jailed by the Jagan Reddy government, released in October last year, and in these 7 months, from October to now, he has turned the tables. Chandrababu Naidu came together with Pawan Kalyan's Janasena. He stitched a crucial alliance with the BJP. He's won the assembly elections in the state, and now he may emerge as kingmaker in the BJP-led NDA. So a complete turn of fortunes. Which brings us to winner number 2, Nitish Kumar, the Chief Minister of Bihar. If there's one thing that he's known for, it's shifting allegiances. Just months ago, Nitish Kumar was part of the India bloc. He was part of the opposition alliance. He was one of its founding members, in fact. But just ahead of the election, he switched. He joined the NDA, and now he too is a kingmaker. Our next winner is from Uttar Pradesh, the state with 80 Lok Sabha seats. They say the road to power in Delhi goes via UP. For 2 terms, the BJP seemed or was unbeatable in Uttar Pradesh, but this time they've suffered a big upset, all thanks to this man, Akhilesh Yadav, leader of the Samajwadi Party or SP. In alliance with the Congress Party, the SP gave a tough challenge to the BJP. Which brings us to the last winner of this election, or the last winner on our list. Kangana Ranaut, a Bollywood actor turned politician. She won from Mandi in Himachal Pradesh. This was her poll debut. She beat Vikramaditya Singh of the Congress Party. And we also have some unlikely and shocking wins, like Amrit Pal Singh, a Khalistani separatist who is in prison. He contested the election while being in prison and also won it from Punjab's Khadur Sahib seat. It's a dangerous message from the voters. Another headliner is Indore, where the winner is Nota. It stands for none of the above. You vote Nota if you do not like any of the candidates on the list. It does not impact the election really, but it's more of a rejection by the voter. In Indore, more than 2 lakh people voted Nota. Why? Because it was a Congress appeal. Just ahead of the election, the Congress candidate switched parties and joined the BJP. So the Congress party asked the people of Indore to vote Nota. The BJP still won, but the message from the voters cannot be ignored. Now, in the last 10 years, the Indian voter has spoken clearly and loudly. In 2014, they voted for change. In 2019, they voted for stability and security. So what is their message this time? What have they tried to say in the 2024 election? We tried to break it down in some key points. First of all, the BJP still remains the biggest party at the centre. It has held on to its national vote share, and its leader Narendra Modi still remains a dominant force in Indian politics. He still has the mandate to lead. But the BJP no longer has brute majority, and that change signals a churn. A clear urban-rural divide has emerged. A large chunk of rural votes went in favour of the India bloc, that is the alliance of the opposition parties. And what was the reason behind this? Let me show you a survey from April this year. It covered voters across 19 states. They were asked a simple question: which are the biggest issues that you care about? And their top 3 issues were unemployment, price rise and development. More than 60% of the voters wanted action on these 3 fronts: unemployment, price rise, development. But when you look closely at the numbers, you saw a gap. The rich urban voters were less likely to raise these issues, but they mattered a lot more to the rural respondents, especially unemployment. It was their top issue. Some voters did recognize India's improving international image due to its expanding economy and growing role in geopolitics, but that number was quite small. India's global standing was a significant issue for just 2% of the voters. And these findings are revealing. The Indian voter is sending a message here that issues like jobs are on top of their mind. They appreciate the growth of the Indian economy, but they want the dividends of this growth to trickle down to the grassroots. Just consider this number. More than 800 million Indians rely on the government's free ration scheme for food. 800 million. So there are significant signs of distress now, and that may have influenced the decision of the voters. The next government, the new government, is expected to present a full budget next month. It would be interesting to see how this result influences the government's spending decisions. And that is the first takeaway. The second message is about the comeback of regional players, from the Samajwadi Party in Uttar Pradesh to the TDP in Andhra Pradesh to the Shiv Sena under Uddhav Thackeray in Maharashtra and the Jharkhand Mukti Morcha or JMM in Jharkhand. These regional outfits have all made gains. So voters have trusted them, their local representatives, to raise their issues in the lower house of parliament. They've rejected what many call outsiders or parachute candidates. Now, I have some interesting numbers for you. This is about the BJP's candidates. On at least 16 seats, they fielded these parachute candidates or turncoats. And how did they fare? As of this evening, just 5 of them had won. 10 candidates had lost the election. The remaining 1 candidate is still leading on their seat. In the last 2 elections, this was not the case. The previous elections were more presidential in style, where the focus was on just the Prime Minister. But now opposition players and regional parties are back in the fray. They've regained relevance on the national stage. You know the drill after elections? Messages pour in from across the world, well wishes, praises and promises to work closer. And this time it's no different. India's neighbours were the first to send messages. The Prime Minister of Bhutan, the Prime Minister of Nepal, the President of Sri Lanka, the President of the Maldives and the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, all of them have congratulated Prime Minister Modi. They also noted that this is his 3rd consecutive term, something that is rare in politics. You may have noticed that 2 neighbours are missing in this list. That's Pakistan and China. Islamabad has not sent a message yet. Some provincial ministers did congratulate the people of India, but nothing from their Prime Minister. What about China? Nothing from President Xi Jinping, but their foreign ministry did congratulate Modi. Listen in.
We noted that the results of India's general elections have been announced. China congratulates the BJP, led by Prime Minister Modi, and along with their National Democratic Alliance on their victory. A healthy and stable China-India relationship is in the common interest of both sides and is conducive to peace and development in the region and the world.
Don't read too much into that. It's mostly protocol language put together. More than 50 countries have sent wishes. Latvia, Lithuania, Mauritius, which is an old partner, Myanmar, Singapore, Japan, Iran, and also Taiwan. From the West, Italy was the first to send a message. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni congratulated Modi. Remember, Italy is hosting the G7 summit next week, and Prime Minister Modi is expected to attend it. French President Emmanuel Macron has also extended his wishes. So has US President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin. In fact, Modi spoke on the phone to President Putin. He also had a conversation with the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Two wartime leaders also congratulated the Prime Minister. That's Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine and Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. Remember, India has refused to take sides in both these wars. So Zelensky, Putin, Netanyahu, they were all congratulating the Indian leader. The Israeli Prime Minister also added a line in Hindi. He wrote, "Badhai ho," which means congratulations. But let's also look at what comes after. What will the new government focus on? What will be the foreign policy priorities for New Delhi? The first issue is the personal. Three leaders have dominated India's foreign policy. That's Prime Minister Modi, Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar, and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. Will this trio remain under the new coalition? Will the Prime Minister make changes? That will have a bearing. Maybe not on the broader foreign policy of India, but definitely on the strategies and the style. The swearing in is apparently slated for June 8th. As of now, that's the date. So we will have clarity by then. With that said, let's look at priorities. What should the new government focus on? Mainly three things. Number one is the neighborhood. India's relations in South Asia are going through a rough patch. The Maldives is pivoting to China. They've even expelled Indian soldiers. Sri Lanka is also slipping into China's grip. Despite the debt crisis, they're still taking Beijing's money. Nepal also looks iffy at this point. In March, a new foreign minister took over in Kathmandu. He visited China first instead of India. So the neighborhood should be the government's first priority. A lot of bridges have been burnt. They must be repaired. Number two is the global south. This mission began in Modi's last term. New Delhi hosted a couple of summits for global south nations. It also pushed to expand the G20. But now it's time to build on that. China is making deep inroads in Africa and Latin America, so India must hit the road running. This decade will likely require a global south alliance. There will be more focus on climate talks, on global trade rules, and on digital security. So we need global south countries to band up. Finally, focus number three, a strategy to deter China, both military and financial. Last week, a few satellite pictures emerged from the border. We told you about them. These pictures showed Chinese fighter jets near Sikkim, almost 14 of them. So India needs to make military preparations too, not to escalate, but to deter Beijing. Same with the financial plans. India's trade with China keeps increasing. It was $87 billion in 2019, but after the Galwan clashes, it has actually increased. Last year, it was $118 billion, and this trade is stacked in China's favor. So New Delhi must correct this, either by promoting domestic investments or by creating new supply chains elsewhere, maybe in friendly countries. And these three priorities cannot wait. I know coalitions often lead to more focus on domestic affairs, but India cannot afford that. Luckily, there is multi-partisan support for India's foreign policy, so it's all about the will, not the numbers. Israel is facing another diplomatic spat, not with Europe, not with some Arab powerhouse, but with tiny Maldives. I bet this was not on your bingo card. Israel versus the Maldives. But what exactly happened here? The Maldives fired the first shot. Around 99% of the country's population is Muslim, so the public sentiment is pro-Gaza there. And this put pressure on President Mohammad Muizzu. Allies and rivals were united. They told Muizzu to ban Israeli tourists. Don't let them visit the Maldives. And Muizzu agreed. He announced a ban on Israeli passport holders. It's not clear when the ban will be enacted, but it's a done deal. And how is Israel reacting? They've asked Israeli citizens to not visit the Maldives, even dual citizens. They say don't go there. They've also asked Israelis already in the Maldives to return. But what's at stake here? Will this ban affect either country? Well, the Maldives welcomes around 1 million tourists. 15,000 of them are from Israel. So that's around 1.5%. But this year, traffic has been low. Less than 600 Israelis visited the Maldives from January to April. That's 88% down compared to last year. So the impact on tourism will be negligible. But what about the political impact? That could be far-reaching. The Maldives once recognized the State of Israel. This was back in 1965. The Israeli ambassador was the first to present his credentials to the Maldivian president. But in 1974, relations broke down. Cut to the 1990s, things looked up again. Israelis were allowed to visit the Maldives. Even normalization looked possible, especially when Mohammed Nasheed was president in Male. He was widely considered pro-Israel. But in 2012, he was ousted. And in 2014, Israel and Hamas fought a war. So hopes of reconciliation were dashed. Another opportunity came in 2020. Israel was signing the Abraham Accords with Arab states, and reports said the Maldives was also interested. Many thought Mali would recognize Israel. But first the pandemic and then the war broke out. Looks like reconciliation will have to wait. And guess who could benefit from all of this? India. Israelis cannot visit the beaches of the Maldives, so their government is saying, go to India instead. Look at this post from Israel's embassy. It suggests 4 Indian beach destinations: Goa, Kerala, Lakshadweep, and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. An Israeli diplomat went one step ahead. He reposted Prime Minister Narendra Modi's pictures from Lakshadweep. Look at the caption. This is what the diplomat has said. Thanks to the Maldives government's decision, Israelis can now explore the beautiful beaches of Lakshadweep. Now, to give you some context, this trip by Prime Minister Modi had triggered a major diplomatic crisis. It led to a boycott campaign in India. So clearly, Israel is pressing the right buttons. But will this Maldivian ban hurt them? Not really. A, traveling is a luxury, it's not a necessity. So they can choose not to go to the Maldives. And B, Maldives is not the only beach nation. So Israel won't be too worried about Male's ban. Having said that, the trend is worrying. The trend of countries banning or boycotting Israel. It doesn't look good. Just look at Turkey. Israel imported 40% of its concrete from Turkey, but Ankara decided to cut off all trade. So what did Israel do? They had to buy more expensive concrete from Europe. And this is just one example. Israel is not a self-sufficient country. They depend on others for imports. So while the Maldivian ban is not a worry, the trend is. And what about Muizu? What does this move say about him? Well, it's pretty much on point. Mohammed Muizu has adopted a muscular foreign policy. He has expelled Indian soldiers from his country, so banning Israeli tourists is not a surprise. Also, his support base will love it. Muizu has banked on Islamic hardliners. Many of them voted and campaigned for him last year. Chances are they will love this ban. And Israel will have to take stock here, because they can't keep dismissing these diplomatic setbacks. First, 3 European nations recognized Palestine: Ireland, Spain, and Norway. What did Israel do? Call back their envoys. Now the Maldives has banned Israeli tourists. And what did Israel do? Again, brush it aside. But this is not a viable strategy. No country can live without partners or friends, not unless your idol is Kim Jong-un. So Israel needs to think long-term. Ignoring such seemingly minor moves may not be a wise strategy. Now let's take a look at the US. It has a new problem on its hands. Russia has now officially called the United States an enemy nation. This came from the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov. Let me read out the translation of what he said. And we are an enemy country for them, much like they are for us. Again, that was the Kremlin spokesperson, and this is the first time he said enemy, because it's not something to be said lightly. Now, you know that Washington and Moscow have never seen eye to eye. They've been on opposite sides in a number of conflicts, most recently in Ukraine. But through 2 years of the Ukraine war, Moscow went out of its way to avoid calling the US an enemy state. Just look at Peskov again. Barely 3 months ago, he said that the US was not the enemy, that Russia did not have any anti-American sentiments. But that has changed now. Why? Perhaps because of last week's escalation. Last week, the United States gave Ukraine a green light to strike Russian territory using American weapons. Ukraine has already begun doing so. They're using American weapons to strike inside Russia, and Russia is furious. Putin says Ukraine is striking Russian territory with the help of Western specialists.
The missile strikes against Russia are done by the Western specialists. We have no illusions about that. What must we do in response? First of all, we will improve our air defense systems to destroy the missiles. Secondly, we think that if someone thinks it is possible to supply such weapons to a combat zone to strike at our territory and create problems for us, why do we not have the right to supply our weapons of the same class to those regions of the world where there will be strikes on the sensitive facilities of those countries that are doing this against Russia?
You heard what he said. Basically, Putin has threatened to turn the tables, to send Russian weapons to Western enemies. Long-range weapons that could strike sensitive facilities in the West. And this means that Western enemies could get the ability to strike them at will. It would be a security nightmare for the Western nations that are helping Ukraine.
In the end, if we see that these countries become involved in a war against us, what they are doing makes them directly involved in a war against the Russian Federation, we reserve the right to act the same way. Overall, it leads to some serious problems.
That was Putin's threat. But he isn't just content with that. He's also going for a show of force. Russia is sending combat vessels to the Caribbean Sea, to America's doorstep. Russia will participate in naval exercises in the Caribbean, along with Cuba and possibly Venezuela. Russian aircraft may also be deployed in the region and won't stop there. Here is what US officials have said, and I'm quoting, "We anticipate that this summer Russia will conduct heightened naval and air activity near the United States. These actions will culminate in a global Russian naval exercise this fall." Now, Russia regularly conducts drills in America's backyard, but this time they're expected to be quote-unquote heightened. And the drills will continue for weeks, if not months. This is clearly muscle flexing. Russia wants to show that even while it is busy with Ukraine, it has firepower to spare, and that it can hurt any enemy anywhere in the world. All of this posturing is reminiscent of a different era, of the Cold War, when Russia and the US were constantly on the brink of war, and the rest of us were hoping to not be caught in the nuclear fallout. The world does not need to go back to the Cold War era. Russia and the West need to de-escalate and let the cooler heads prevail.
Will you please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God"?
So help me God.
South Africa held its general elections on the 29th of May and the final results are out. It's official. The ANC has lost majority. That's the African National Congress Party, ANC. They've lost their parliamentary majority. The party first came to power in 1994. That's 30 years ago. And this year, in 2024, it has seen its worst performance ever. The ANC is the party of Nelson Mandela, the party that ended apartheid in South Africa. But their days of running South Africa alone are over. Now they will have to cobble together a coalition government. So who are the likely partners? What will influence the ANC's decision? And what happens to President Cyril Ramaphosa? Our next report has the details.
Thank you very much to all of you. The final announcement of the 2024 national and provincial election results today in many ways represents a victory for our democracy as South Africans. It also represents a victory of our constitutional order, but more importantly, it represents a victory for all the people of South Africa.
That was South Africa's president, Cyril Ramaphosa. He said the elections were a victory for all the people of South Africa. But there are some South Africans who will feel that it was a defeat. Ramaphosa's own party, the African National Congress, won the most seats in these elections. They are the biggest party. But the ANC has lost sole control of South Africa after 3 decades. For the last 30 years, ever since the ANC under Nelson Mandela helped end apartheid, the party has ruled the country. It won every election with an absolute majority. But this time, they only won 159 seats out of 400. They need 42 more seats to get back control of the parliament. That means the ANC will have to form a coalition if it wants to remain in power. So far, only 2 other parties have more than 42 seats. South Africa's main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, and the MK party, led by former President Jacob Zuma. If the ANC ties up with either of them, it can return to power with just one coalition partner. The DA already seems keen on starting coalition talks.
I can today announce that the DA's federal executive has unanimously adopted a resolution to initiate exploratory talks with other parties that share a commitment to the South African Constitution, and to identify options for the formation of governments at a national and provincial level where no party has obtained an outright majority.
The DA controls South Africa's Western Cape province, so an ANC-DA coalition will end up controlling 8 out of 9 provinces in South Africa and 246 seats in parliament. But the ANC may not go for this because of the DA's free market economic policies. The ANC and the DA have fundamental differences in their economic outlook. The ANC's other coalition option, the MK party, is almost a non-starter because it is led by former President Jacob Zuma. Zuma and Ramaphosa are considered bitter rivals. Zuma has said that he won't ally with the ANC if Ramaphosa remains president. But so far, the ANC has rejected that demand. Now, there is a third option, a multi-party coalition. The 4th biggest party after the election is the Economic Freedom Fighters. The EFF won 39 seats. That's not enough for the ANC to reach the halfway mark. But the EFF is an ideologically similar ally for the ANC. Their leader, Julius Malema, was a former ANC youth leader. But an ANC-EFF coalition would need at least one more ally. That means more partners that the ANC will have to listen to. More partners that could hold the ANC to ransom by threatening to leave. That could lead to an unstable government. Will the ANC risk bringing a third party on board? Or will they choose to go for a strong, stable government with the DA? The ANC only has 2 weeks to decide.
Superman has kryptonite, Indiana Jones has snakes, Achilles has his heel, and Pakistan's cricket team has India. This time with a twist. The T20 World Cup is underway in the United States. As hosts, the US is also participating. On Thursday, they faced Pakistan in Dallas, and not many people gave them a chance. The US is ranked 18th in the T20 rankings. Pakistan is ranked 6th. They also made the finals of the last World Cup. But guess what? The US has sprung a surprise. They managed to beat Pakistan in a super over after the match was tied. For someone who covers politics, it was quite strange. We're used to Pakistan duping the US, but this time the Americans were out for revenge. They held their nerve to beat Pakistan. And the fun part? The American team had a lot of Indian origin players, around 6 out of 11. On social media, people had a field day, especially with one player in the US team. That's Saurabh Netravalkar. He was born in Mumbai. He even played for the under-19 India team, but later he migrated to the US. He's not a full-time cricketer. His day job is at a software company called Oracle. And that's not all. He also plays the ukulele. Talk about skills. He codes in the morning, demolishes Pakistan in the evening, and plays music at night. If you made an Indian inside a lab, it would be Netra Valkar. Look at all the memes and reactions to his performance.
Let's go, 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 go.
Pakistan may have lost that match, but one thing is clear, the internet remains undefeated. Pakistani fans are roasting their players, and with good reason. The last T20 World Cup was in 2022. Pakistan finished there as runners-up. On Thursday, they faced a very inexperienced team. Like Netra Valkar, most US players are semi-professionals. They get just $240 per match, and don't forget the facilities. Pakistan has access to great international coaches. They have the best equipment. They also have full-fledged stadiums. And the United States, none of that. So how exactly did Pakistan manage to lose? Well, we may have found the answer. Take a look at this. Now it makes perfect sense. In the month of April, the Pakistan team trained with the Pakistan Army. Months later, they lose to the US. Either it's a tacit deal for some cutting-edge F-35s, or the training was real bad. But jokes aside, let's talk about this World Cup. Cricket was never big in the US. As a country, they're obsessed with other sports like basketball and baseball. Not even football has managed to succeed in the US, which is why this tournament is important. A World Cup is a showpiece event. By organizing it in the US, the ICC is hoping to break into the American market. A quick side note, the ICC is the International Cricket Council. They run global cricket. Now, many of you may ask why? Why the American dream? There are two reasons for that. One is expansion. Every sport aspires to be a global favorite, so you must explore new frontiers. It's a natural progression. And second, for money. Just consider the advertisement slots. The Super Bowl is one of the biggest sporting events in the US. Guess how much they charge? $7 million for 30 seconds of ads. Compare that to the IPL final. A 30-second ad costs around $70,000. Do you see the difference here? 7 million versus 70,000. The US market has the potential to make a lot of money, but it's easier said than done. Right now, cricket is limited to people of South Asian origin. The key is to expand that, to introduce new audience to the game. This win against Pakistan will certainly help do that. And I know we trolled Pakistan a lot, but India too will be playing the US. So here's our message to the men in blue. Keep the spirit of the Quad outside the field. Elections are a serious business, but they also have their light moments. And this time, those light moments were ruled and defined by memes, which are all over social media, so much so that even the Prime Minister shared one during the poll season. Now the election is over, but it appears that the meme fest has just begun. On result day, they focused on three things: the Kingmaker, exit polls, and of course the bloodbath on the Lal Street. Our next report brings you the highlights.
This election has been quite the surprise. It has defied exit polls. The opposition has made good gains. The BJP is short of majority on its own. And social media can't stop making memes about it. This election has two kingmakers, Chandrababu Naidu and Nitish Kumar. And it looks like social media just can't keep calm.
आप कौन? कहाँ लगाया फोन? आपका क्या नाम है? हमसे क्या काम है? आपके पास नंबर आया कैसे?
Will they stick with the NDA? Will they shift allegiances? Will they help the India bloc form a government? It's all social media is talking about. Nitish Kumar as godfather, Rahul Gandhi trying to woo him, Nitish Kumar fielding multiple calls. But when social media wasn't talking about kingmakers, they had two other favourite topics: exit polls and the stock markets. Most exit polls predicted a sure-shot majority for the BJP and almost 400 seats for the NDA. That didn't happen. It caused the stock market to surge on Monday, but the results did not live up to expectations. The markets crashed and people couldn't stop talking about it. So, is it a moe moe for the BJP or is it a khela hobe for the India bloc? We'll know in the coming days. But one thing is for sure, the elections may come to an end, but the meme fest is just starting.
Both alliances held meetings today. First, the BJP-led NDA alliance